Welcome to the Tuesday Huddle, a brief reflection on Sunday's message at Walnut Hill Church in Lexington, Kentucky. Each week, we revisit the heart of the sermon and consider how God's Word meets us in the days ahead. Thanks for listening. Let's continue the conversation.
Well, hello there and happy Tuesday to you. Welcome to Walnut Hill. That's where we are. We're on Walnut Hill today. My name is Shawn Barkley. I'm with my colleague, Jessica. Good morning to you.
Good morning. I have my tea. I'm ready to go.
You're ready to roll, aren't you?
Yes.
And so, hey, if you've not yet worshiped with us from Sunday, you can go to Walnut Hill churchky.org, which is our website, and worship with us, or go to our Facebook page, because we're in Jonah chapter 4, and it's an interesting ending to a interesting story.
It really is. But I have to say, first of all,
Okay.
this is one of your funniest sermons yet.
Really? Why?
It's just the examples you use.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, I was dying listening to this. So, yes, please go back and listen to it if you need a good laugh,
There
especially, but also for the moral teaching.
I mean, that wasn't my ultimate aim, was to make people laugh, but I mean, in a Sunday morning message, I mean, I think Jesus used humor.
Absolutely.
I mean, swallow a camel and strain out a gnat. I mean, that's
Right.
kind of funny stuff.
And we get to Jesus in this, which I love.
We do.
So we end up talking about Jesus flipping tables, and I just watched that scene in The Chosen. When I watched it, I was like, I knew it was coming, and I was like, no one interrupt me, no one talk to me. I need to see Jesus.
What was it like
I
as they
mean,
depicted it in The Chosen?
it was much more kind of violent and disruptive than I expected.
Okay.
And again, this is TV,
Sure.
so dramatic license, but we've seen him kind of annoyed
Mhm.
because the disciples are constantly asking
Right.
questions, which would probably annoy me too. But this is real anger.
Yeah.
And it's really like straight, red eyed anger. But as we talk about in the sermon, it's righteous.
Yeah.
So
So what makes it righteous anger when he does that? As you watched it,
the impression was these people are selling sacrifices to people who, first of all, can't afford it.
right.
And then secondly, they're doing it in a holy place where it should never have been allowed. And
Okay.
so I think as depicted in The Chosen, one of the main points is, of course, taking advantage of these people, but B, also profaning his father's house.
Gotcha.
And so there's kind of that dual meaning to it. Yeah, really powerful.
Yeah.
Was an interesting watch and definitely helped me key into our sermon this week.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
'Cause when I think about the life of Jesus, he didn't seem like an angry guy.
No.
But yet there were moments when he's like, "You adulterous generation, you're asking for a sign," and he gets frustrated, but doesn't sin, because we know that he was without sin. So you can be angry, and it's justifiable, it's righteous if it leads to right actions, which is kind of what I was trying to get at this Sunday. And so we started out talking about Sean McDermott,
We
who I feel really bad. First of all, there's a NFL football coach named Sean McDermott.
Oh, goodness.
This is not him.
No, this is definitely not him.
And so I feel bad. We have, I read these articles and I bookmark them, and I'm like, I just have to share this, but I want to prey on someone's misfortune or anything like
Right.
that. And so almost there are moments where I'm like, do I even name this person? Or so anyway, but it's sort of a real life example. And
It really is. And I looked into the backstory because
Okay.
my immediate thought was there has to be something else going on here. And when he was found in New York, they found just a load of nitrous oxide in the U-Haul. If you abuse nitrous oxide as a drug, it can cause these psychiatric effects that would have
okay.
led to the fire, paranoia, hallucinations. It's short-lived, but definitely something there. And my guess is since he had priors with drug paraphernalia and controlled substances, there was definitely an illness there in
Yeah.
terms of addiction.
He was not in his right mind, obviously, but it was such an interesting example of how we destroy our own home, speaking metaphorically, our life, when we allow anger to become toxic and take over.
Absolutely. And I have to say, kind of not even joking, when I first heard the story in the sermon, I thought, yeah, you know what? I'd set them on fire too. I wouldn't,
Not a spider fan?
not a
No,
spider
okay.
fan, severe arachnophobia, but the neighbor's houses would take it too far for me.
Yeah, that's right. Sound home complex, you're thinking this is not gonna be
If I
isolated.
thought spiders were after me, yeah, I'd have some pretty dramatic reactions.
Yeah. Well, when I was writing that, I had an alternate So whenever you prepare a sermon, you've got all this material and then you try to kind of winnow it down to a message and you're gathering material all week long. And I was going to lead with the whole Incredible Hulk. What was the guy's name who became the Hulk?
Bruce Banner.
Banner, that's it. He would say something like, "Don't make me angry. You wouldn't like me when I'm angry." And he turns into this Hulk. I was gonna go that direction, just talk about how we see a lot of hulkish behavior, people just turning green with rage, but I went with, poor Shawn.
Well, I've got one for you.
Okay.
We don't even have to reference Shawn anymore.
Okay.
This goes along with the idea that incredible harm we cause to others when we are angry and when our anger gets the best of
Mhm.
us that you discussed. So, and I'll just make this short, but last week I bought some plants and one of my dogs, who will remain unnamed,
Okay.
Annie, ate them,
Don't speak ill of
ate
an
them, all
angel.
4 of them.
Did she really? Well, you got her on a diet.
I did think about that. They're looking slim and trim now, but she ate it. I think there was something in the pots that was attracting them, so she ate it, and I got really angry, and I yelled at her, and I said, "You are a bad dog. You're a bad dog." And it really upset my child.
Oh, so there were other ears.
There are other repercussions, and it was one of those moments where this anger that didn't need to be that angry, and I didn't see my child for 2 days, and when she came back, the first thing she said was, "You were mean to Annie."
Oh, wow, she was stewing on it.
Yeah, so you gotta
Mm.
really think about that anger. Is it worth it? How is it affecting others?
Is it my imagination or do we just seem angrier as a society? Someone said to me, "You're just older now. And the older you get, the madder you get." And I don't live in a state of anger by any means. I don't know that I've ever yelled at a person in my entire life. I mean, I've yelled at like at a game or something, but I just find myself having a shorter fuse
Yeah.
with people.
I think it does make sense that it comes with age sometimes because you've seen more,
Maybe.
and I think maybe you have the wisdom of what to
Mhm.
value in life more, so when you see people taking small things too
Yeah.
seriously. Yeah.
Well, and so we talked about the effects of anger on the human
Right.
person. It affects us physically. You got a bad heart. You don't need to be chronically angry.
No.
It affects our cognition. We just lose our ability to be reasonable and rational sometimes. And of course, then it affects our behavior. We do things like setting a fire in our townhome
Yes, or yell at our dog.
or yelling at our dog. And we are living in a culture where there are people who are monetizing rage.
Yes, absolutely.
And I really wanted to lift that up. It's not news to anyone, but you look around a congregation, you look around your friend group and realize that we do live in echo chambers a lot of times. And if half of us are getting our news on social media, and social media is the gatekeeper for what we get, and it's based on what our preferences are, it is easy to just go further and further in that direction and not be able to have any regard for a different perspective.
Right.
And it's just making us mad.
Yeah, I think it's
Mhm.
definitely a dangerous road. I do wanna say with social media, because that's what I'm heavily involved.
I was gonna say, we're talking about your area here,
Yeah,
but
I think it depends on what you choose to
Mhm.
access and look at. So, for instance, I'm gonna give us a boost here.
Okay.
One of the things I'm proud about is Facebook has deemed our page a page that brings people together.
Really?
So, yeah, so we do positive things. We
We
put
do?
positive messages out
Okay.
there, which is great, and I just hope people look for more of those pages. It's hard to do.
Mhm.
I've been in a state where, I've looked at more negative messages.
Mhm.
Certainly when I got divorced, was looking at things like
Right.
that, and I just realized at one point, this is not
Mhm.
helping.
Yeah.
So, look for those pages that bring people together.
Yep. I find myself searching a lot about sports, and that's
Mhm.
sort of where and that's sort of an escape for me
Yeah.
and, sort of my happy place.
Mhm.
I love sports. Jonah chapter
Yes.
4, now that we've talked a lot about anger, and the reason that I wanted to talk about anger is in verse 4, if you've got your Bible open, "But the Lord replied to Jonah, 'Is it right for you to be angry?'" And for me, that was the question of the chapter because he repeats it later.
Mhm.
It says, "Is it right for you to be angry about the plant?" And so the context is, as we all know, as we've been reading through the book, Jonah is angry that God is merciful to the Ninevites. And what I've tried to point out as I was looking at that is that his ego was involved. I mean, think about it. They're preaching, he's making a public spectacle. This is what God's going to do. And then suddenly God's not going to do it. And boy, don't we get angry when our egos are bruised,
Our
or
reputations are
reputations are
questioned.
questioned. I mean, when I think about the times that I've been angry inappropriately, it's when I feel like somebody said something to impugn me when I shouldn't give them that kind of power to impugn me, but
Right.
you do. And then, of course, the other issue is his anger is linked to his bitterness toward the people, the Assyrian Empire. So he has some real prejudices. It's easy to get put it this way, I can look at two groups of people who are doing the same thing, and if there's one group of people that I have a bias against, I get more angry at that group than the group that's kind of my own team
Of
doing the same
course.
thing.
Confirmation bias in a way.
Uh-huh. Yeah. I mean, if I just go back to sports since it's sort of innocuous. If my sports team has a penalty for unsportsmanlike conduct, well, it was just he just had a bad day.
Or the ref was
Or the ref was unfair. But if the other team that I do not like does that, well, they're dirty.
Mhm.
And so we tend to get angry, at least based on this example, for those reasons. Something has hurt our ego, or we have a prejudice against someone. And then we moved on and looked at the effects of that.
Mhm.
And so if you have your Bible open, look at verses 10 and 11. God has sent this plant to provide shade for Jonah. Apparently, Jonah's bald. And but do you
I
not get
didn't
that? I read that. I think he's bald.
I think you're right, but I loved the reference of the sermon.
Oh, yeah. He had a beautiful bald head. So if you look at verses 10 and 11, everyone, God basically says, hey, you've been concerned about this plant. You didn't plant it. You didn't tend to it. You didn't make it grow. It was only with you for a day. It sprang up and died basically in a day. And so he says, you're mad about that. Should I not be concerned for this great city that has more than 120,000 people who cannot tell their right hand from their left, which I read as children?
Children.
They don't get it. And so the idea is that Jonah basically had disordered priorities.
Yes.
He was so upset about this silly plant, but did not care about the fact that 120,000 children were going to perish based on their wickedness and their rebellion of their parents. And so my takeaway was, hey, when we are chronically angry, sometimes our priorities totally get out of whack, and things that aren't important become very, very important. And things that should be important are not. Case in point.
Includes a plant. That's
I mean, yeah. I mean, I love plants, but if there's an issue where I have to chop down a tree or someone's going to get hurt, I think I'm going to care about the person getting hurt
right.
more than the tree.
Right. But I also wonder, and there's so many layers, of course,
Mhm.
to the story. And one of them that I also thought is he asking Jonah to be thankful the plant even existed? I mean, it's God
Yeah.
given, right?
Mhm.
And so God can take it away. And if it's God given, can you really be angry when it
Yeah.
goes away?
It's not yours in the first
It's
place.
not yours in the first place,
That's
right?
true. Yeah.
And I think also just going back to chapter 4 as a whole, it's also showing us what happens when we trust our own intuition and our own judgment more than
Mm.
God's.
Mhm.
It
Just say more about that.
well, it just seems like Jonah's struggling with this because he thinks he has the answers.
Mhm.
And God is saying, "No, you don't."
Yeah. Yep.
And trying to remind him, which is it's funny when you think about it in the context of this is a prophet.
Right.
And still he's questioning God and still going, "Are you sure you wanna do this?" And God is kind of having to remind him, "Hey, number 1, you shouldn't be angry about this." But I think
Mhm.
he's also saying, "You shouldn't be questioning this either."
Yeah. Well, isn't it interesting? Jonah is only there by the grace of God.
Exactly.
I mean, God has spared him, and yet he doesn't want God to practice that same grace with people that he doesn't like.
Right, that grace and forgiveness.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So for me, that's one of the great themes of the book is Jonah, why is he angry? What is the anger doing? And then also, as you're mentioning, just the idea that we are great at receiving God's grace, but not so great at extending it sometimes for other people. And so I wanted to talk just a few minutes with you about righteous anger. Because as we talked about on Sunday, anger is neutral. It's an emotion. It's God given. And I use the analogy of money. Money is just a thing. It's not good or bad. It's
Right.
just a thing. It's a necessity of life. But the preoccupation or the love of money is called the root of all evil. Like I hear some people quote the Bible saying, money is the root of all evil. And I'm like, that's not the way I read it. I read it, the love of money, the elevation of money to a position it shouldn't have is the root of all evil. And I think the same is true with anger. There are times when anger is appropriate. As you mentioned with Jesus in the temple, overturning the tables of the money changers. And it says in the Bible, God is slow to anger. It doesn't say God does not get angry. And it's always interesting to me that God's anger is connected with God's love. He is slow to anger, abounding in steadfast love. There's a connection there between anger and love. And when I try to lift up, and I hate to always talk about my son, but he's a walking sermon illustration. The angriest I ever got at him was when I was afraid for him
Absolutely.
because I loved him so much. And so anger was my emotion, but it was steadfast love.
And then you did mention, and I liked this transition moving over into, can anger produce something good? And so we talked about the nonprofit reset,
Right.
where you said two people from Australia went to Calcutta, India. They saw women forced into prostitution and it made them angry. And instead of just being angry, they did
Yeah,
something.
they did. They created this incredible nonprofit where they are taking these women out of the sex trade and giving them an actual trade that they can make a living on. Because these young girls were their future was essentially being mortgaged for terrible things.
Yes.
And, they were losing their childhood, they're losing their dignity. And so for me, the issue I wanted our church to think about, and those of you who are listening to our podcast, is if I am feeling angry, is it a chronic toxic anger or is it a righteous anger? And one of the ways that we get to that is we look at what's the fruit of my anger? Am I doing something about it? My mother-in-law is in a senior living center. And my wife and I got angry the other day because we did not feel like she was being properly treated or treated properly. And so rather than just yell and stew and get chronically upset about it, we just tried to get to the root of the problem. Like, what's going on here? How can we make this work? And so it was an anger that was not like, I want to take revenge on these people who are not being good to my mother-in-law, as much as like, hey, how can we kind of work on this so that she can be treated with dignity and respect?
Right. Absolutely. So many things happen to us personally, and we can turn it into good for
Yep.
a whole lot of people,
Right.
not just ourselves. So yeah, I think that's just a really interesting set of questions. Number one, is your anger righteous? And number two, what are you going to do with it?
Yes. Hmm.
Are you going to go somewhere good with it? Or like you mentioned when you referenced Paul's letter to the Ephesians, chapter 3, are you going to let it become a sin?
Yeah. Be angry, but do not sin. Don't like the sun go. So I guess the question I want to leave you with or ask you, and maybe we'll just leave our podcast with is whatever happened to Jonah?
Mm.
So he's a spectator, which I think is interesting. It's almost like he's pulled up a lawn chair and was like, all right, let's see what's going to happen here. It's like when your neighbor gets into digging a hole or something, you're like, I wonder if he's going to hit a water line. Let's just sit here and watch this. So he becomes a spectator. God leaves us with a question. What do you want me to do here? And what do you think happened? I mean, it's pure speculation, obviously, but
I hope he thought about it. I hope he thought about if his anger was righteous. I hope he came to the right conclusion. The whole book, it just strikes me as very funny because he's
mhm.
so unlikable.
He is, isn't he?
He's so unlikable, and I do think it's one of the stories, if you just went out in the street and asked someone, "Tell me some of the Bible stories you remember," I think it's one that people remember, and
Yeah.
what I like is that we've gone through it so much that you really know what it's about, and it's not about the whale.
I hope people got that.
Yeah.
And one of the fun things about being a pastor, and obviously the people who are with us on our podcast and watch us online at Walnut Hill Church know we just open the Bible and try to discern what it's saying to us. And it's just fun. I had several people say, I knew the story of Jonah and the whale. I did not know the story, though. I just knew the story of the whale.
Yeah.
And so that was good. I have to believe that he came around because I don't know how else the story would have been told.
That's true.
I mean,
Yeah.
you got to wonder if he went back and said, I've got this amazing story to tell about the goodness and the mercy of God.
It's kind of a cliffhanger, like, we don't
Yeah.
saw it
What happened?
the end of The Sopranos,
Mhm.
if you remember that.
No, I never saw one.
Okay.
I never saw 1 second of this.
I literally only saw the finale.
Okay, yeah. No. Well, anyway, anything else from the story, Jesse?
No, I'm glad we went over it, but I'm ready for some songs.
We're going to get into the Psalms. We're going to take a break this Sunday and talk about rest and Sabbath. So we'll be in Hebrews chapter 4. And then we dive into the Psalms starting at the end of June.
Right.
And not just studying the Psalms, but praying through the Psalms and learning how to pray. And it'll actually be interactive. Like, all right, this is what we're being asked to do. Let's just spend some time in quiet praying as we're being instructed here.
Yeah. I love that, especially because Donna Barr was with us on a previous podcast, and she said a lot of people just feel like, "Am I doing this right?" So I love that we're walking through.
We're going to. I am too. All right, well, I think we're done. Hey, everyone, thank you for giving us 20 minutes of your time. Hope you have a wonderful week and a wonderful weekend. And so you take good care. Bye for now.
Thanks for listening to the Tuesday Huddle. If Sunday's message encouraged you, we invite you to watch the full service or explore more at walnuthillchurchky.org. Join us this week and next Sunday as we continue to grow together in faith.